Do you remember what sleep used to feel like? Not just sleep, but that deep, heavy, gone from the world sleep you had in your 30s and 40s, where you closed your eyes and the next thing you knew it was morning, where you woke up and actually felt like you had slept, where your body felt genuinely rested. Most people over 60 describe that kind of sleep like a memory from another life. Now it is waking up at 2 a.m. for no reason, lying there for an hour, brain running, staring at the ceiling, falling back asleep just before the alarm goes off, getting up tired, dragging through the morning, needing a nap by early afternoon, and then, here is the cruel part, not being able to sleep properly the next night because of it. If that sounds familiar, here is something I want you to hear right now, before anything else. That is not just aging. That is not simply what happens and something you have to accept and live with. Most of the sleep problems that seniors experience, the waking, the restlessness, the shallow sleep that never quite feels like enough, have specific, identifiable causes. And most of them can be genuinely improved. Not with sleeping pills, not with supplements that cost a fortune and do very little. With understanding, with a handful of specific changes, most of which cost nothing at all. Today we are going to talk about sleep. What actually changes in the brain and body after 60 that makes sleep harder. What the science says really works for older adults specifically, not general sleep advice you have already read 100 times, but the stuff that is actually relevant to your body right now. And what Harold did that took him from waking up 3 times a night to sleeping through until 6 in the morning for the first time in 8 years. Stay with me. This one might genuinely change how tomorrow morning feels. There is a reason sleep problems are one of the most common complaints doctors hear from patients over 60. It is not because people are worrying too much or not trying hard enough. It is because sleep actually genuinely changes as we age, in ways that most people have never been clearly explained. And here's the thing that bothers me about most sleep advice. It is written for everyone, which means it is really written for no one in particular. Take a warm bath, put your phone away, go to bed at the same time every night. Fine, useful. But if you are 68 years old and your sleep has been broken for 5 years, that advice barely scratches the surface of what is actually going on. So today we are going deeper than that. We are going to look at what is actually happening inside your body when you sleep poorly after 60. Why the usual advice works for a stressed 35-year-old, but often misses the mark for someone your age. And what actually makes a difference, based on real sleep research done specifically on older adults. Let us start with Harold. Harold is 74. You have met him in some of our earlier videos. Retired electrician, lives on his own, keeps himself reasonably active. For about 8 years, Harold slept badly. Not catastrophically, he was not up all night, but he would fall asleep fine, then wake somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning, lie there for anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, drift off again just before dawn, and then drag himself up feeling like he had barely slept at all. He tried everything he had been told to try. No screens before bed, herbal tea, keeping his bedroom dark. None of it made much difference. His doctor eventually referred him to a sleep specialist, and what that specialist explained to Harold changed how he understood the whole problem, and eventually how he fixed it. She told him that his sleep was not broken. It had just changed. And the way you fix changed sleep is different from the way you fix broken sleep. Harold spent the next few months making specific adjustments, not dramatic ones, to when and how he slept. He changed a few things about his mornings. He changed one thing about his afternoons. He changed almost nothing about his evenings, because as it turned out, evenings were not his real problem at all. 8 months later, he told his daughter he was sleeping until 6 most mornings and waking up feeling like himself for the first time in years. What the specialist told Harold is what we are covering today. What actually changes about sleep after 60. Before any of the practical advice makes sense, you need to understand what is actually happening. Because here is the truth. Most sleep problems in seniors are not about sleep at all. They are about what happens in the body during the hours before sleep and during the day. Sleep runs on 2 systems. Understanding both of them is everything. System 1 is called sleep pressure. Throughout the day, as you are awake and active, A chemical called adenosine builds up gradually in your brain. Think of it like sand filling an hourglass. The longer you are awake, the more adenosine accumulates and the sleepier you feel. By evening, the hourglass is nearly full, and your brain is genuinely ready for sleep. When you fall asleep, your brain clears the adenosine. By morning, the hourglass is empty, and you feel refreshed. This is sleep pressure, and it is your first major sleep driver. Here is the problem after 60. Two things happen that weaken this system. First, older adults tend to be less physically active than they once were, which means the adenosine builds more slowly and accumulates less strongly. The hourglass never fills quite as full, which means by bedtime, the sleep pressure driving you toward deep sleep is genuinely weaker than it used to be. Second, napping. When you nap during the day, even for just 30 or 40 minutes, you partially drain the hourglass early. By evening, there is less sleep pressure remaining, and your sleep that night starts shallower and more fragile. System 2 is your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is your body's internal 24-hour clock. It regulates dozens of biological processes: body temperature, hormone release, digestion, and critically the timing of sleep and wakefulness. The master timekeeper of this clock is light. Specifically, morning light entering your eyes sends a signal to your brain that resets the clock each day, triggering a cascade of hormones that keep everything timed properly. As we age, two things happen to this system as well. The clock itself becomes less robust. Its rhythms become shallower and less precise, and the lens of the eye yellows slightly with age, filtering out some of the blue wavelengths of light that are most important for sending that morning reset signal to the brain. The combined result is that the circadian rhythm becomes less anchored. Sleep timing drifts. Many seniors find themselves genuinely sleepy earlier in the evening, sometimes as early as 8 or 9 o'clock, and then waking earlier in the morning than they would like. This is called phase advance, and it is extremely common and almost never discussed. There is also this. The biggest sleep hormone, melatonin, is produced in lower quantities after 60. The evening rise in melatonin that signals it is time to sleep now becomes smaller and less reliable, which means the biological cue to sleep is quieter than it used to be. And there is a third change that almost nobody talks about. After 60, the proportion of deep sleep, specifically the slow-wave deep sleep, that is the most physically restorative stage, decreases significantly. A 30-year-old might spend 20% of their night in this deepest stage. A 70-year-old might spend only 5 to 8% there. This is why you can sleep for 7 or 8 hours and still feel tired. The quantity of sleep has not changed much. The quality has, because the time spent in the truly restorative stage has dropped dramatically. This is the landscape Harold was dealing with. Not broken sleep, changed sleep. And changed sleep requires a different approach. The mistake most seniors make. Here is the pattern that makes everything worse. And it is completely understandable. It is what any reasonable person would do. You sleep badly, you feel tired, you rest more during the day, maybe a longer nap, maybe just more sitting and less moving. You go to bed a little earlier that night to try to catch up. You lie there not feeling all that sleepy. You eventually fall asleep, but the sleep is shallow. You wake at 3 a.m. You are exhausted by mid-morning, and the whole cycle repeats. What this pattern does, biologically, is weaken both sleep systems at the same time. The daytime rest and napping drains sleep pressure before bedtime. Going to bed early when your body is not yet ready fragments the sleep. The shallow, fragmented night leaves you tired the next day, which leads to more rest, more napping, earlier bedtime, and the cycle digs itself deeper. Sleep specialists call this sleep restriction, but not in the way the word might sound. The goal is not to suffer through tiredness. The goal is to protect and rebuild the sleep pressure and circadian rhythm that make deep, consolidated sleep possible in the first place. Harold's specialist described it to him like this. Going to bed before your body is actually ready is like trying to fill a glass that has not been properly emptied yet. You end up with a half-full glass every single night. The fix is not to try harder at night. The fix is to change what happens during the day. What actually works? The morning. The most underrated sleep tool is free and it is already outside your window. The single most powerful thing Harold changed was the first thing he did in the morning, and it cost him nothing. He started going outside within 30 minutes of waking up. Not for a walk necessarily, though that helps too. Just outside, standing in the garden, sitting on the porch with his morning coffee, somewhere that natural morning light could reach his eyes. Here is the science behind why this matters so much. Morning light, particularly the bright, full-spectrum light of the outdoors, sends the strongest possible reset signal to your brain's internal clock. It tells your circadian rhythm, this is the anchor point, this is morning, count forward from here. That anchor point then determines when your brain begins producing melatonin in the evening, approximately 14 to 16 hours later. So if you get outside at 7 a.m., your brain starts producing melatonin at around 9 or 10 that night, and your biological sleep window opens right around the time you actually want to be sleeping. Without that morning anchor, the clock drifts. Melatonin production becomes irregular. Sleep timing becomes unreliable. Indoor light, even bright indoor light, is not sufficient to do this properly. You need outdoor light because even on an overcast day, the light intensity outside is dramatically higher than anything indoors. A bright indoor room might give you 500 lux of light. Standing outside on a cloudy day gives you around 10,000. A sunny day gives you 100,000. Your brain's clock needs that intensity to reset reliably. 10 to 15 minutes outside within the first hour of waking. That is the target. No sunglasses. You want the light reaching your eyes. You do not need to stare at the sky. Just be out in it. Harold described this as the change that made the biggest difference of everything he tried. Within 2 weeks of doing it consistently, he noticed his evenings had shifted. He felt genuinely sleepy at a reasonable hour, rather than just lying in bed waiting for sleep to arrive. The second morning change: movement. Physical activity is one of the most evidence-backed sleep improvements for older adults. Not because it makes you physically tired, though it does that too, but because it builds adenosine more strongly throughout the day. The type of movement matters less than the consistency. A 20 to 30-minute walk, a gentle exercise routine like the one we covered in our earlier videos. Even consistent movement around the house, standing more, sitting less, makes a measurable difference to how strongly sleep pressure builds by evening. One important note on timing: vigorous exercise within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime can actually delay sleep for some people by raising core body temperature and adrenaline at the wrong time. Morning or early afternoon exercise tends to produce the best sleep results for seniors specifically. What actually works? The afternoon. The nap question everyone wants answered. Should you nap or not? This is the question Harold asked his sleep specialist, and her answer was more nuanced than he expected. The honest answer is, it depends on how you nap. A long afternoon nap, anything over about 25 to 30 minutes, significantly drains sleep pressure and almost always makes that night's sleep lighter and more fragmented. If you are regularly taking a 1-hour nap and then wondering why you wake at 3 a.m., that afternoon nap is very likely part of the answer. A short nap, 20 minutes or less, ideally before 2 or 3 p.m., can restore afternoon energy without significantly affecting night sleep. The key is that it must stay short. The moment you enter deeper sleep stages, which typically begins around 25 to 30 minutes in, you wake up feeling groggy and you have consumed sleep pressure you needed for tonight. If you are trying to improve a genuinely broken sleep pattern, the most effective approach is to cut naps entirely for 2 to 3 weeks while doing everything else on this list. Sleep pressure rebuilds relatively quickly when you stop draining it early, and many people find their night's sleep improves substantially within 10 to 14 days. Harold cut his afternoon naps completely for 3 weeks. The first week was rough. He was tired earlier in the evenings than usual and struggled to stay awake past 8. But by week 2, he was sleeping more deeply than he had in years. And by week 3, he was waking less frequently during the night. Caffeine timing. This one surprises almost everyone. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in your brain. Essentially, it temporarily prevents your brain from feeling the sleep pressure that has been building. The issue is that caffeine stays in your system far longer than most people realize. The half-life of caffeine is roughly 5 to 7 hours. That means if you drink coffee at noon, half of that caffeine is still in your system at 5 or 6 in the evening. If you have a cup at 3 in the afternoon, a meaningful portion of it is still circulating at 10 or 11 at night, blocking adenosine, reducing sleep pressure, making it harder to fall and stay asleep. For seniors, caffeine is often processed more slowly than in younger adults, which can make this effect even more pronounced. A simple guideline that works for most people: no caffeine after noon. This single change makes a measurable difference for many seniors who have been unintentionally sabotaging their own sleep pressure for years without realizing it. Harold had always had a cup of tea at 3 in the afternoon. Old habit, never questioned. Cutting it moved his sleep quality noticeably within the first week. We have covered the morning and the afternoon. And if you make only those changes, the morning light, the movement, the nap adjustment, the caffeine timing, most people notice a real shift within 2 to 3 weeks. But the part I want to talk about next is the part almost nobody gets right. It is not the bedroom environment. It is not the temperature. It is not the white noise machine. It is something that happens in the brain during the hour before sleep that silently dismantles deep sleep for millions of seniors every single night. And it is something so ordinary, so common, so completely unremarkable that almost nobody ever connects it to the sleep problems they are struggling with. Stay with me. What actually works? The evening and night. What is really keeping you awake? Let us talk about the thing Harold's sleep specialist identified as his single biggest evening problem. It was not screens. It was not noise. It was not temperature. It was thinking. Not anxious thinking necessarily, though that certainly does not help. Just ordinary thinking. Planning the next day. Replaying conversations. Running through a mental list of small tasks. The low-level mental activity that most people do not even notice. Lying in bed in the dark with nothing else to occupy their brain. Here is why this matters medically. Sleep requires a genuine physiological cooling down, and not just in terms of body temperature, though that matters too. The brain needs to genuinely quieten its activity levels. Cortisol, the body's main alertness hormone, needs to be falling. Heart rate needs to be dropping. The nervous system needs to be shifting from its active, engaged state into something much calmer and more receptive. Mental activity in the hour before bed, even calm, non-anxious thinking, keeps cortisol elevated. It keeps the brain in a state of mild engagement. It interferes with the quietening down process that has to happen before deep sleep becomes possible. The fix is not to try to stop thinking. You cannot do that by wanting to. The fix is to give the brain something to do instead, something that occupies it gently without stimulating it. Here are 3 approaches that are well supported by sleep research, specifically in older adults. The brain dump, about 30 to 45 minutes before bed, sit somewhere comfortable, not in bed, and write down everything that is in your head. Tasks for tomorrow, worries, things you need to remember, things you are thinking about. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Research from Baylor University found that people who spent 5 minutes before bed writing a to-do list for the next day fell asleep significantly faster than those who did not, because the brain no longer needed to hold on to those thoughts. The paper was holding them. The brain could let go. Gentle reading, physical books, not tablets or backlit screens. Engage the brain just enough to give it something to focus on, while the passive nature of reading allows the nervous system to gradually quieten. Many people find they can read for 20 minutes and feel genuinely sleepy in a way that lying in the dark trying to sleep never produces: progressive muscle relaxation. This sounds clinical, but it is genuinely simple. Starting at your feet, deliberately tense each muscle group in your body for 5 seconds, then release. Work slowly upward. Feet, calves, thighs, stomach, hands, arms, shoulders, face. The release of tension after each tightening triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and recovery mode, in a way that is measurably different from simply lying still. Harold started doing this every night and described it as the most boring thing I have ever done, and it works every single time. On body temperature. Your core body temperature needs to drop by about 1 degree Celsius for deep sleep to begin and be maintained. This happens naturally as part of your circadian rhythm, but you can support it. A warm bath or shower about 90 minutes before bed is counterintuitively one of the most evidence-backed sleep improvements available. The warmth draws blood toward the skin surface, which allows heat to radiate away from the body more efficiently, meaning your core temperature drops faster after you get out. The 90-minute window is important. Too close to bedtime and your temperature is still elevated rather than dropping, keeping the bedroom cool, somewhere between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit for most people, also supports this temperature drop throughout the night. Harold had always slept with the heating set to 72. Turning it down to 67 was, in his words, an embarrassingly simple thing that made a genuinely stupid amount of difference. On waking in the night. For many seniors, the problem is not falling asleep, it is staying asleep. Waking at 2 or 3 a.m. and lying there for an hour or more. Here is the single most important piece of advice on this. Do not lie in bed awake for more than about 20 minutes. This sounds counterintuitive, but here is why it matters. Your brain learns associations powerfully. If you regularly lie in bed awake for long periods, your brain begins to associate your bed with wakefulness and frustration rather than with sleep. Over time, this makes falling and staying asleep harder, not easier. If you wake and cannot fall back asleep within about 20 minutes, get up. Go somewhere dim and quiet. Do something calm. Read. Sit quietly. Do gentle stretching. Do not check your phone. Do not turn on bright lights. Do not look at the clock more than once. When you feel genuinely sleepy, not just tired, but the heavy, eye-closing feeling of actual sleepiness, go back to bed. This feels wrong. It feels like giving up. But it breaks the wakefulness-bed association that is making the problem worse. And most people who do it consistently find that within 2 to 3 weeks they are waking less frequently and falling back to sleep more easily when they do. The medication conversation. I want to spend a few minutes on this because it affects a large number of seniors, and almost nobody talks about it honestly. Sleeping pills, both prescription and over-the-counter, are widely used among older adults, and the research on them is something every senior deserves to know. Most prescription sleep medications work by sedating the brain rather than producing natural sleep. The sleep they induce is biochemically different from natural sleep. It contains less of the slow-wave deep sleep that is the most restorative. This is why many people who take sleeping pills still wake up feeling unrefreshed even after a full night. The sedation was there, but the deep restorative sleep was not. Over-the-counter sleep aids, the kind sold in pharmacies without a prescription, almost universally use antihistamines as the active sleep ingredient. These carry particular risks for older adults, including next-day cognitive impairment, increased fall risk, urinary retention, and a growing body of research linking long-term use to increased dementia risk. This is not to say no one should ever take any medication for sleep. There are circumstances where medication is genuinely appropriate and where the benefits clearly outweigh the risks. That is a conversation for you and your doctor. But it is to say, if you are regularly taking over-the-counter sleep aids and you are over 60, please have an honest conversation with your doctor about it. There are options available now, particularly a therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI. That research consistently shows produces better long-term sleep improvement than medication for older adults, with none of the side effects. CBTI is available through sleep specialists, through trained therapists, and increasingly through apps and online programs that make it accessible without needing specialist appointments. Putting it all together, let us bring everything together into one simple daily plan. In the morning, get outside within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up, 10 to 15 minutes in natural light. No sunglasses. Do some form of physical movement. A walk, a gentle exercise routine, whatever works for your body. This is your 2 most powerful sleep tools, both done before 9 a.m. During the day, no caffeine after noon. If you nap, keep it under 25 minutes and before 2 p.m. Stay as physically active as you reasonably can. Standing more, sitting less, moving regularly. Every bit of activity builds sleep pressure for tonight. In the evening, a warm shower or bath about 90 minutes before bed, a brain dump, writing down everything in your head around 30 to 45 minutes before sleep. Cool your bedroom to around 65 to 68 degrees. Read a physical book rather than looking at a screen. Let your brain gradually quieten rather than trying to force it to sleep. If you wake in the night, do not lie there for more than 20 minutes. Get up, stay calm, do something quiet in dim light, and return to bed only when you feel genuinely sleepy. Give it time. Most people need 2 to 4 weeks of consistent practice before the full benefit of these changes becomes clear. Sleep responds slowly to new habits. The first week is often the hardest. The second week usually shows the first real signs of improvement. By week 4, most people know whether what they are doing is working. Harold took 8 months to get his sleep consistently right, but he was also figuring things out one at a time. If you apply all of this together, deliberately and patiently, you will likely see results faster than he did. What to expect? In the first week, you may feel more tired, especially in the evenings, as your body adjusts to stronger sleep pressure. This is a good sign, not a bad one. By week 2, most people start falling asleep more easily. The struggle to drift off at bedtime often improves before the waking in the night does. By week 3 and 4, night waking starts to reduce. Sleep feels deeper and more refreshing. Morning tiredness begins to lift. At 2 to 3 months, this is where people like Harold end up, sleeping through to a reasonable morning hour, waking up and actually feeling like they have slept. The morning heaviness that used to sit in their body for hours gone. None of this is about being young again. It is about working with the body you have now, in the way it works now, rather than fighting it or accepting a worse version of sleep than you actually need. I keep thinking about one moment Harold described. The first morning he woke up at 6, having slept all the way through, and lay there in that quiet before the day moment, just noticing how he felt. Not groggy, not already tired, just rested. He said he had not felt that way on a regular morning in so long that he had forgotten it was possible. He genuinely thought he had just accepted that this was life now, that sleep was something that had happened to him in his younger years, and that middle-of-the-night wakefulness and exhausted mornings were simply what being 74 meant. They were not. They never had been. They were just the result of a body whose sleep systems had changed and a set of habits that were working against those systems rather than with them. That is what you are walking away from today. Not a miracle cure, not a supplement, not a gadget, just the understanding that your sleep did not abandon you. It changed. And now you know how to change with it. The morning light is free. The earlier caffeine cutoff costs nothing. The brain dump takes 5 minutes. The cooler bedroom is a thermostat adjustment. Start with one thing, just one. Tomorrow morning, take your coffee outside instead of drinking it in front of the television. That is it. That is where Harold started. See where it takes you. If this video helped you, if any part of it made you think that is exactly what has been happening, please click the like button and subscribe if you are not already here. We put out practical, honest health content for seniors every single week, and I genuinely want it to reach the people who need it. I would love to hear from you in the comments too. What does your sleep look like right now? Are you a middle-of-the-night waker, or do you struggle to fall asleep in the first place? Let me know. I read every comment, and I try to answer as many as I can. And if someone you love is struggling with sleep, a parent, a partner, a close friend, please send them this video. A lot of people are suffering through something that does not have to be this hard. Step outside tomorrow morning, even if it's only for 10 minutes. That is how this starts. Take care of yourself. See you in the next one.